Hey guys, what's cracking? Godsman here, coming at you, the next installment of Custom Card Review. We're heading near the end zone here, but if you'll notice, there's actually a bit of a surprise here. See, at the end of the last episode, I was going to move on to Owl End's custom Kagero cards, right? I read the little synopsis at the beginning and everything. So why the heck are we at Probably Share It? Well, see, I made a bit of an oopsie, so once every few days I've got to go and refresh this page because we're still getting new custom cards even right now, which is freaking phenomenal, right? I love how popular this series has become, but that's not the point, right? The point is I have to refresh, that way I can see the new entries and keep up, because if I don't refresh the page, then I'm going to be done prematurely and not see all the people who entered after the last refresh. The thing is I refreshed just a little bit ago, and when scrolling past here, I actually came across this, and I don't recall reviewing some Garmore premiums, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Also, there was actually apparently a new Faden that got like thrown down, and I didn't know about that either. The Faden dude didn't have like a ton of cards to his, so I'm also gonna fit in this Faden grade 4, right? Because one thing to mention is, even if like you try to piecemeal your entries a bit, I'm trying not to touch over the same guy. They keep on posting on some new stuff, because I know there's a couple people who keep on reposting like different cards and stuff, and I won't be able to get to them. But this guy's going to be a bit of an exception because he still has space, right? So let's go ahead and start with Mr. Probably Shira here and his Garmore cards. And yes, I know it's Garmore because I actually read the synopsis to understand and jog my memory, but I don't know what these cards do. Let's change that. Spring Breeze Messenger is the grade 0. Yosh, I love Spring Breeze Messenger. He is my favorite gold starter because he's the starter I used during V-Series when I was out there topping with Spectral Duke Dragon. Made 9th place in BRO 2021. I think that was the year I did that, right? So yeah, I've got some good memories of Spring Breeze. Anyway, effect-wise, nothing to see here. It's just the normal D standard starter skill. Moving on to grade 1, we've got Little Paddler Tron. Oh yeah, this is classic. Grade 1 Gold Paladin. Auto. When this unit is rode upon by Lop-Ear Shooter. Ooh, that's an interesting combination of cards you went for. Look at the top card of your deck and you may call it to rear circle. If you did not call a card, call this card to rear. I like how he says call it to rear guard, but then he says call this card to RC. See, you're supposed to say RC here, so you got it right this time, but you didn't get it right here. So it's kind of funny seeing a guy make a grammatical error and then correct that error later on. I'm like, okay, so I guess it's just an accident rather than like bad grammar, right? Anyway, this is a good skill. So this is a +1 regardless of how you do it, and it's somewhat reminiscent of old school gold tactics where you would have to just call the top card, and be it trigger, PG, or a super pog beater unit, what have you, you've got to commit to it. You call that sucker to the rear guard and you don't whine about it. You know what's the old adage? You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Yeah, that's Golds in a nutshell back then. So this kind of has that going on, but you can kind of throw a fit by calling Tron instead, which is perfectly fine. You're essentially getting rid of a soul in order to get this more guaranteed plus, and it has an auto skill actually. Auto on the rear. During your turn, if you have a Vanguard or Garmore in his card name, this unit gets 5k power. Yeah, even more so, right? So this is going to be a 13k attacker or booster, which is particularly good for something like Golds, because regardless of whether or not you have a lot of more boosters or more attackers there, Tron's 13k is going to be very relevant. This is really helpful no matter the era of Golds. I mean, heck, Gorble Duke in V-Series Golds being a 13k attacker booster was very key, right? I mean, because if you threw that sucker on an Excel marker or something, you still hit really good numbers even against force decks. Here, yeah, this is also hitting the numbers. So I could see a very good argument to be made that you look at the top card. Now, one interesting thing about this, and this is an effect that is reminiscent of V-Series Fallon, and I know I keep bringing up V-Series, but so far it's becoming more relevant to me. If you look at the top card of the deck and you choose to call Tron instead, a la the Alden Ride Line fashion, you keep that card on the top of the deck. You know what's on top of there now, right? So if you see like a critical trigger or, oh, heaven forbid, the OT or something like that, right? You can just keep that there. And what's so crucial about this is you look at the top card instead of reveal it. So your opponent doesn't know what you got there. Only you know what you got there. Although they can presume it's something bad, because if you bother to call Tron over it, it's probably it's probably something you want to drive check. So it's bad vibes from either way, right? But yeah, overall, very fantastic ride line. I've got absolutely no complaints here. It incorporates several like Gold Paladin-esque elements, and also is just competent up to snuff with the current Divine's power creep. Lopier's Shooter is the grade 2, as mentioned before. Gold Paladin, auto. When this unit is rode upon by a unit with Garmore in its card name, right, costs Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from hand. Ooh, this is expensive. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 card from among them and call to rear circle, shuffle your deck. Auto on the rear circle. When this unit is placed on rear circle, if your Vanguard is a Gold Paladin, you would rephrase that as if your Vanguard has only Gold Paladin for its clan. Minor grammar stuff, right? Cost Counterblast 1. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 unit. Choose up to 1 card from among them. Call to rear circle, shuffle your deck. You may choose an order, I guess, with this, but why the heck would you? Okay, so this is a pretty good card. I like this second skill a lot because, yeah, you just CB and you call something off top 3. Now, of course, you look at it and say, whoa, something like K-Bird needed to Soul Blast as well. But there's a really big difference because with K-Bird, if you reveal something like, say, a grade 3 or whatever, you didn't have to call that sucker. You could add to the hand instead. So K-Bird almost certainly was going to be a very reliable +1 for that top 3 search, which is why the Soul Blast there felt more pertinent. Here, you're only counter blasting, but if you want a plus off this top 3, you're gonna have to call whatever you see. So if it's 3 triggers, or if it's 2 triggers and a PG, if it's a trigger, a PG, a persona ride, or if it's trigger, PG, order card, whatever, there's a lot of really bad top 3 combinations you could see, but the only way to plus is to call something to the field. So, and this isn't one of those counterblasts that refunds itself afterwards, right? It's not like Burning Horn Dragon. I think that was the name of it, right? For Overlord, where if you didn't add Overlord top 7, you just countercharge it back. No, you commit on this counterblast, right? Which is, again, Gold Paladin vibes. You don't throw a fit, whatever you get. However, this first skill I'm a little dubious on because I don't think you needed to discard here. Most Divines level ride lines +2, and I mentioned this quite a bit because I've noticed that some of these ride lines are more +1 and then a break even, which is, that's more conducive of what like previous era ride lines kind of did. You don't need to do that here. I think a simple Soul Blast and call off top 4 is perfectly fine for you. It's not broken or anything like that. You're not even giving them extra power. You're just calling a unit on top 4, which again could be a pretty bad unit. So you're already taking a risk with it. You don't have to discard. You're already going to have a lot of hand advantage issues because you're playing golds, which is more based on calling to the field constantly. Bot deck them, call more things to the field. The advantage of golds is alleviating the need to call from the hand in the first place, right? So you don't want to dig into that discard. I think the Soul Blast is plenty, especially because if you use Tron's skill and you don't hit the lottery and you call Tron instead, that's also effectively a Soul Blast. So that plus Liberator Shooter means that when you're going into your grade 3 turn, you're going to have 1 soul to your name, excluding any other skills. So that's already enough of a cost as it is, if you ask me. So yeah, Ride Line could stand to lose the discard, but the second effect is perfect. Great Silverwolf Garmore is the grade 3. I wish David was here reviewing these. Garmore is his homie. I like any Garmore he loves, more or less, right? I always liked Wolfang Liberator Garmore a little bit more, but you know, I mean, bro would even go for Fang of Light Garmore. That's crazy. Gold Paladin continuous. During your turn, if your hand has 3 or less cards, or you have 5 or more units, all of your rear guards get 5k. Okay, I've got something to say about that, but let's read the rest so that we can get the full picture here. Auto. When this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, you counterblast 1 and soul blast 1. Choose 2 of your rear guards and put them on the bottom of your deck. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, and for every 2 cards in your damage zone, call one of the cards to rear circle. And those units and this unit get 5k until end of the turn. Shuffle your deck. Call 2 if you're at 4 damage. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I like this card. Ooh, me likey. Come to Papa. So let's start with the continuous skill, right? What I wanted to mention about this continuous skill is phenomenally in theme for what Garmore would do, right? So the hand being 3 or less is a brave condition, so it would feel out of place with Garmore. But let's bear in mind that the V Series one, I know I keep bringing up V, right? But again, it is very pertinent here. In the V Series, Garmore had a skill to power up and also protect your units on the field as long as your hand was 1 or less. that was a very hard condition to reach, because being able to protect your field given power, it's cool, right? You know, you'll be able to have a really strong formation, but the lack of hand advantage makes it to where you're effectively a sitting duck, and that was an issue. Increasing the stipulation to 3 is a bit better, although still kind of risque. So I appreciate that it's the whole 5 or more units here to give all of your rear guards 5k. This is Garmore to a T, right? If you ever remember that fight Aichi has with reverse Naoki, right? He goes like the fellowship circle. He's not afraid to fight with the aid of his friends, that kind of stuff. That's Garmore, right? He is all about having the full board and charging into battle with his allies. So this really screams more the unity element of Garmore. As a matter of fact, I would say just push it to the next level, right? Like, I don't think like even having the cards there is all that necessary, but it's a cool stipulation, because if you're pushed to the edge and you have like no units to speak of, you just call your hand and hope for the best. You just dump your hand and try, you know? And that's perfectly fine. It's a good last desperation maneuver. So this stipulation is good. Both of these stipulations feel very in theme and could both pop up depending on the game state. This second skill is also beautiful. When it's attacking a grade 3 or greater unit is a fantastic condition to make sure you're not blowing up on the opponent. It does mean that if Garmore's going first, he's only really going to get about 3 attacks. So he's a little bit slow if he's going first, but when you're going second, you can at least smash him a bit. But being able to counterblast and soul blast 1, there's something very interesting about this cost. See, the brackets here, I know, we're going to bring up the brackets, that's how specific this is. The brackets end on soul blast 1, meaning that choosing 2 of your rear guards to put on the bottom of the deck is an optional part. You have to do it if you had the 2 rear guards, because it says choose 2, not choose up to. But let's say you swung with Garmore and you had 1 or even no rear guards. You could still just counterblast and soul blast and then call 1 or 2 cards off top 7, effectively making the skill upwards of a +2 if you're in a desperate scenario. So again, Garmore has great comeback potential. Even when there's nothing at your disposal, you can still reinforce your fields, much like Wolfang Liberator and, you know, different Garmores like that. That's very epic to me. It's also giving a nod to Limit Break, because with Limit Break, you get to go harder, giving them 5k power, giving this guy 5k power, a little bit of empowerment there, which goes hand in hand with this 5k power. These, you know, they're minor power-ups, so they stack. So it's a decent offense. It's not overwhelming, but it's just enough to be respected, and there's a bit of a versatility there. I also like that since you can choose any 2 rear guards to put on the bottom of the deck, right? If you have to call triggers, which I know is very sad days, you can bot deck them, call more off top 7, shuffle the deck, and then you've trigger compressed again, which is really good for Gold Paladin, because you already have a lot of deck compression with the various calls that you get throughout the course of a game. So yeah, this is just a Gold Paladin unit through and through. It doesn't just feel like golds, it also feels like Garmore, and I think it's a pretty solid card. I like how open-ended it is with its ability to buff any units and also call any units, right? It's not Gold Paladin specific to what you use, so you can use a lot of your Keter generic card pool at your disposal. I also like that this can combo with things like Lop-Ear Shooter, right? Where Lop-Ear Shooter can counterblast 1 to call top 3 with, you know, this plus this is a counterblast 2 play, of course, but if you wanna go big, you've got to pay big, right? So there's also really good combo stuff here. I think it's phenomenal. This is 10 out of 10 so far. Player of the Holy Bow, Vivian. Grade 2 Gold Paladin. Auto. Rear. When this unit is placed on rear circle, I see this sometimes. You don't have to put rear circle here if you just put like rear circle there. It's redundant. But, you know, again, minor nitpicks just so that like people can improve the art form, right? If your Vanguard is a Gold Paladin, cost. Put 1 of your other rear guards to the bottom of your deck, then countercharge 1, soul charge 1. Okay, so this is good. You're negging 1 in order to get countercharge and soul charge, which feels good, and it's the Gold Paladin version of it, which is bot decking a rear guard rather than having to like discard a hand. Because I know there's there's some sort of angel, I think it was like Forceps or something angel. He has like really wicked medical tool that would like force you to discard to get the countercharge soul charge. This one is way more lenient than that, and it's in the flavor of gold, so if you're utilizing your field for all of your needs, right? There's I think it was like Stand Up the Sword. What was his name? Like he had like Soryu in his name, right? And he made this clip, and I remember it was a Gold Paladin clip, and I suggested to him like this thing about make a clip where all of your problems in Gold Paladin is solved with superior calls, because it really was. You need more card advantage, superior call. You need more multi-attack, superior call. You need more power, superior call. You need more shield, superior call to Guardian Circle. Or hell, even alternatively, use your field and move in the Guardian Circle if you're like a golden holy sword Gurgit. Your superior calls solve all of your problems, and now they also solve your resource issues. This is very gold. It's a little bit funny to think that Vivienne here is kind of the inverse, because the original Vivienne was a card that called when hit, and then the V Series one counter and soul blasted to call and get you to like call off the deck as well. This is the opposite. This is refunding costs by negging you a rear guard. So I will say it's not quite living up to the fidelity of Vivienne, but I kind of like this better because it's just a good resource card. So who cares if Vivienne's effect is radically different? It's not like we haven't seen this before. It still feels like Gold Paladin, so it still passes the mark for feeling like a proper homage to the old school retrain, right? Which go figure. I value that more than creativity, because these are based on pre-existing cards. Charge Gall is the grade 1 classic. This was the original booster for Garmore. Gold Paladin. Auto on the rear. During the battle, this unit boosts. If you have a Vanguard with Garmore in its card name, this unit gets 5k power. This would be a continuous skill because it doesn't have an ignition type stipulation. It just says during your turn if you have yada yada, right? So there's nothing initiating this effect. It's just always online. Heck, it also doesn't even say like during your turn. It just says during the battle this unit boost, so you know, like it's still like a during kind of condition, so you would be continuous. Auto on the rear. When this unit is placed on rear circle, again with that redundancy, if you have Vanguard as a Gold Paladin, Soul Blast 1 and draw a card. We have really good Gold Paladin card right here. It's a little funny that this is this is kind of generic, the second skill, so you can just play this in Ezel a lot. I also find it funny that the whole boost for 5k is for anything it boosts while your Vanguard's a Garmore, so I'm like, wow, Charge Gall, you're kind of a traitor. You used to be like Garmore's #1, you know that, and now you're just like hoeing yourself out to everyone. It's really funny. But still, this is a really good card, especially because the Soul Blaster to draw can be kind of a touchy subject if we're going with the idea that this ride line is going to be killing your soul. So soul is a more precious resource than ever. This could get you back a soul charge, but you need to get rid of a card, so it equals out with the draw card here, right? The way that the economy is counterbalanced by the costs and conditions is very sublime here. Yeah, 10 out of 10. I have absolutely no complaint with these. I think if these came out right now, this would be really fun to play. Some people really dig Garmore, and it feels more interesting and more old school golds than even Ezel does, because Ezel's more focused on like the superior ride and then just like the superior call off deck during battle phase. And this one does it too, but you know, this one has a little bit more flavor to it, I feel like, because of the different conditions behind it. So yeah, overall 10 out of 10. I can't really say anything bad about these, not gonna lie. Not much to say about these other than they can really support as oh, trust me, I saw that, buddy. I saw that, and that's a good thing. Yeah, honestly, I would love it if these things spiced up Ezel. Ezel needs some support these days, right? It's kind of in a geriatric state of being in this format. It looked like it was going to be pretty beastly when it first came out, but pretty quickly it became a thing of the past again. How about that? Okay, cool. We're still recording, so let's go ahead and get on to the next one. K Brave Hero. We got yourself your this is a that's a grade 4 Faden. How did I not notice that the first time? That's wild. Okay. So the first grade 4 of the Faden package. This guy's originally a G unit when I had the idea about him for the first time. Faden and his friends too. Okay, so he always intended for this to come alongside the other Faden cards. But I don't want to make his package a stride deck, so I made this guy a typical non-promo grade 4 instead. LOL. Yeah, that's probably for the best, right? Like there was no need to make Faden a stride deck, especially because Faden's skills, there was no like stride over type skill there, so it'd be really awkward to sort of supersede your Vanguard with a stride every single turn. It's much more preferable just to go for an upgraded grade 4 version, kind of like going into Bastion Prime, which is an objectively stronger version of Apex Ruler, stuff like that, right? Let's see what you got here. So he's a main deck grade 4, as the homie Brave said before. Triple drive, okay, so, 13k power. Yeah, this is really just a normal unit main deck grade 4 that we would see in the D series. Auto. When placed on Vanguard Circle, if this unit is ridden from a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, this unit gets continuous Vanguard Circle. All of your front row units get 10,000 power until end of turn. Ooh, why is that generic? That's funny. Okay, so you know, I don't know what decks would use this though. right? Like, even some of the more generic Keter stuff, like Reziel, right, couldn't use this because Reziel's divine skill stipulates that you can't ride non-Reziels after you use that divine skill, right? Which is why, if you ever saw that Faden clash I did between Reziel and Blankmeyer, I never used Reziel's divine skill. I just used Leal Immortal when riding over. So you're able to do that if you don't use Reziel's divine skill, but it's a bit of a gamble, right? That one happened to pay off, but just bear in mind that condition is still there. It still exists. Anyway, aside from like Rezi, right? Like he can't be in this, and I don't think any others would really do this because you already have like better boss units going around. But a continuous 10k to the front row is kind of menacing because it's effectively as if you Persona Road minus the lack of the extra draw, although you do get the triple drive, which is probably how you get your extra card, so to speak. So it's sort of mimicking Persona Ride. Being able, when it's riding from a grade 3 greater, also means that you can trigger it from riding over itself, which now that really does feel like Persona Ride at that point. Act on the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard cost, put a card with Faden in its card name from your hand or drop into the soul. Whoa, that doesn't feel like much of a cost then if you can do it from the drop. And you may have this unit get the name of that card until end of turn. Okay, so for any Faden lock stuff, because wait, I didn't even notice that. Charging Knights leader Duke Lanceros. Dang, dude. But okay, I think I get it, right? This guy wanted this dude to be a stride initially. This definitely feels like a stride because it's not an upgraded version of your quote-unquote heart card, right? It's just a completely different thing. You know, like how Altmile would be strode over by Shrouded Divine Knight Godblade. This would be the Godblade. Godblade is not related to Altmile. Maybe in lore he is, but in terms of aesthetic and name, there's no connection, right? So this is like the same thing. You're kind of making that connection forcefully because this comes out as more of a generic Royal Paladin stride card initially. Okay, that's fascinating. That really opens the way for like a more Giification of standard there if we were trying to go that route. Again, he didn't make it a stride, so he didn't take that really brave leap, but I could see where that brave leap could have worked, right? And then we could start like moving on to like every clan having G guards again and stuff, and we'd be back in the golden age. I don't know. Anyway, so what do you get for that? So you get the name, and then if you do, this unit gets 5,000 power, critical +1, and the following auto skill. Auto on the van. At the end of your turn, choose a card with Faden in its card name for your soul and write it. Oh, so it replaces itself with Faden afterwards, right? This is I will say that in terms of its abilities, it works. Like card balance wise, this is just a pretty beefy dude, right? It's got the extra crit, a bunch of extra power for your front row. It's got the drive because it's a triple driver, right? And it's effectively costless, right? This first skill doesn't have a cost, just a condition. And this second skill, Faden, like you can just put it from the drop to the soul, meaning that if you soul blast it out for any cost, which there are a bunch of different soul blasts you could do every turn, right? You can then return it, so it's effectively free. Wait a minute. Act on the Vanguard when this unit attacks a Vanguard? What the frick? That can't happen. I'm going to assume this is a typo, where it's supposed to be auto on the Vanguard circle because acts are purely main phase skills, right? There's self-manual ignition effects that you can't do during the battle phase, right? So this has a ignition type trigger, which is what makes it not continuous for the other guy I was just reviewing, right? So this would be an auto. Or alternatively, what you could do is you could just make it act on the Vanguard circle, cost, and then just eliminate the win attack of Vanguard part. That's fine, because the thing about that is it doesn't make much of a difference. You're still going to get like power and that end of turn like rewrite skill, right? That could happen during the main phase. It could happen when you attack the Vanguard. The opponent doesn't care. It doesn't change what they're going to have to do to defend it, and they can still see it coming. It's a very telegraphed play pattern. I guess the only technical difference here that would make the auto skill superior, quote unquote, is that it gives you a chance to use a mid-battle phase soul blast so that you can recycle the Faden afterwards. So by making it during the battle phase, you have like all of the main phase and some of the battle phase in order to get that going, right? Otherwise you'll have to like use a Faden from the hand, which you may not want to do. So overall, I'd probably give this about like a 7.5 out of 10. The reason why is I think card balance wise, it's pretty good. This was like kind of a big oopsie here, admittedly, but I think it's a little confused because this first skill being generic, like I don't know why it does that. It's kind of neat, but at the same time, I feel like it would have been better just to do something to expand the Faden gimmick a little bit more rather than shadow the fence there. So it feels a little unfocused. Furthermore, it's also rather rather boring, right? Like Faden did have the feel of like a very basic bare bones kind of royal paladin playstyle, but it still had like some really nice paladin flavor to it, like, you know, the superior calls, being able to buff up your field, that kind of stuff. All this is a big attacker, right? It just swings big and gives like the front row buff. Like, that's it. That's all it does. It doesn't even like superior call. It doesn't have stipulations based on your field whatsoever. It's a very bland, individualistic unit, which doesn't really strike me as something that lives up to the legacy of Faden very much. So in terms of the theming of it, and also the focus, it kind of misses the mark. But in terms of objective card balance, I think you did a pretty fine job here. And I also like the art. I do like the horse, because again, it gives you like the Godblade kind of vibes from it, right? So yeah, I'd probably give it a how made me quote tennis. So yeah, like about a 7.5, I would say overall. Not a bad card. Okay. Now let's go ahead and scroll way down, because again, I'm making up for my oopsies. We went through a lot of these. Where are we? Man, Nikaru, Rescend, yeah. Dread Dreamer, okay, we already did Icarus, really good cards, those as well. Okay, Gears, right, we did that. Coping for New Liberators, I did it myself. If I remember correctly, this guy didn't give me, no, I actually got access. Yeah, boy. Oh, snap. I don't know what happened in between, but I got access now. Holy crap. This is even more of a benefit to like going back. Now I can do this. Finally. I was hoping to see some of these new Liberators. And he's using zero arts too. Oh, yeah. I can already see all the zero arts. Oh, this is going to be lit. All right. So let's go ahead and take it from the top with Monarch Sanctuary Alfred there. Okay. Low-key made my day that I was able to like make up for this in full. Okay, so and he said V series, right? Because I see an Excel marker there. Coping for New Liberators, yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna assume V series because the Excel marker. So this is Liberator Monarch Sanctuary Alfred, which is cool because for those of you guys who are veterans of the series and you understood the original Limit Break / Ultimate Break Alfred, that retrain that we got for Royal Paladin where it was just Monarch Sanctuary Alfred, not Liberator, must have been kind of confusing because it's one of those really weird V-Series retrains that changed its clan, Magatsu Storm being another one. Magatsu Storm was originally a Murakumo unit, not a Nubatama unit. So I don't know why Bushi does these things, right? Where they like sort of identity crisis them, but you know, it happens sometimes. So this one's going back to form. Anyway, so Liberator Monarch Sanctuary Alfred, grade 3, Twin Drive, Excel. This card has a 13k base, which I don't know why it does. It should be a 12k base since we're going off of the, V era stats, which admittedly, I must say the 12k base for Protect and Excels were quite dumb. I feel like all Vanguard should have the same basic power, at least your normal grade 3 Vanguards. If you're like a grade 4 or whatever, then you can go above that. But even D-Series didn't do that, so go figure, right? But I would have been fine with that. But this one, yeah, it should be a 12k base. Unless, of course, there's something like Spectral Duke Dragon, but Spectral Duke Dragon had a ride line base skill, which gave it a continuous 1k buff, so that was different. It wasn't just natural to the card. Auto on the Vanguard Circle once per turn. When your unit with Blaster Blade is placed on rear from your deck, this unit gets 10,000 power and critical +1 until end of turn. This is quite an interesting stipulation here because for being a Gold Paladin, you wouldn't be able to run the regular Blaster Blade. The regular Blaster Blade's a Royal Paladin, and that whole like you can use multiple blasters thing, it only applies for MLB. So this will only work with Blaster Blade Liberator most of the time. I think that's the only Gold Paladin Blaster Blade that we ever got because most of his versions are Royal Paladin, and Blaster Joker wouldn't count because A, it's not a Blaster Blade technically, and B, it's a Link Joker. So we'll just say Blaster Blade Liberator for now, unless we're proven otherwise by the support cards here. After the Vanguard Circle once per turn, Counterblast 3 and Soul Blast 2. Ooh, we kept the really gnarly condition. I like that. That actually does feel like a very daring strategy that you would see from the Clan Collection Athos of card design. Sometimes they really do just make things very costly. Like look at Armor Break Dragon. Armor Break Dragon had a whole Counterblast 3 to it. They never really left out that big cost part. Although with Armor Break Dragon, you didn't have to like discard your cards and retire your front rows as well and stuff. So overall, it definitely was a much easier to use card. But here, I guess this is also an easier to use card because you don't have to wait for Limit Break or Ultimate Break or something. You just go for it as soon as you got 3 damage. And 3 damage is the cap minimum because you have Counterblast 3. Put all of your rear guards and locked cards to the top of your deck in any order, right? So we're severing the locks as is tradition. Look at cards to the top of your deck equal to the number of open rear circle you have. Choose any number of units with the Liberator in its card name and call them to separate rear. And put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, those unit gets 5,000 power at end of turn. Okay, so this is basically the original. The original did this as well, right? It severed locks, you put back your entire field, and then you got to recall your field, right? That's what you did. Now, what's kind of interesting about like this skill here is, let me explain how Monarch Sanctuary Alfred was a little bit of a versatile card, because that's because this is basically what the original was. So let me tell you how the original was. You got a lot of power in critical, right? Monarch Sanctuary Alfred, one thing that he doesn't have here on this, the original did have, is that it had like extra continuous power based on the number of rear guards you had. So you get an extra 5k power on it if you had a full field, right? So, and that's just like original Alfred. Of course, it was during your turn, so no defensive there. What was interesting about this is, in addition to buffing up, you could use the skill to loop your blaster blades, right, and keep getting blaster blades, and you'll be able to stack blaster blades with like Starhope Trumpeter and stuff like that. But as well, this is actually a potentially major plus. See, and not only do you get rid of lock cards, but it says pull all of your rear guards and then look equal to the number of your open rear circles. So if you slap him down on turn 3 and you have like 1 unit on the field, and that's it, you have 4 open rear circles, you activate this skill, you put back that 1 unit on top of the card, on top of the deck, and then you look at top 5, and if you call all those cards, you get a really major plus to, as long as you're willing to call those cards, right? It's a lot like how Chronos Command Dragon's V-Series remake was, where you kind of rely on what you saw up there, but if you were just baller and chose to call everything, you technically plussed big time with that skill. So yeah, it feels somewhat similar. I think this 5k to all of the units called is what's emulating the whole power. So with the original, it was more based on him. He was really big kahuna, but now this V-Series 1 has a little bit more of an emphasis based on the units you call, which I think is a little bit better in my opinion. So yeah, I'd say this guy's about like an 8.5 out of 10. He's definitely just like the original, but I actually would have appreciated if there was something a little bit more here, because I don't know, it just feels like you could have done something with Monarch Sanctuary Alfred to be a little bit more interesting. Now, I know I just got done saying earlier that with retrains, you want to maintain faith more than you want to like get creative and out there with it. But in the case of V-Series, where you're sort of like retraining them into a different version, you could have had an opportunity to like, say for instance, make this an auto skill when it attacks, right? I think that one difference on its own would have been pretty huge for you, because you could make it a multi-attack instead. And for V-Series, that's perfectly fine to make that a multi-attack. Now, of course, one impressive thing about this skill here that I didn't mention, open rear circles include your Excel markers. So if you're building up your Excel markers, which you definitely can thanks to the power of Holy Shine Dragon, which can superior ride a Liberator unit, which this qualifies as obviously, you could be getting a lot of extra calls. So it's like, oh my lord, here comes the really, really big blow up play, which is perfectly fine for V-Series, but because you have to pay this really, really exorbitant cost, and Counterblast in particular is kind of touchy for V golds because you have a lot of different strong counterblasters in your deck as it is. I mean, just look at like the Hoel Kaiden duo, Aglavale counterblast in the Vanguard circle. You counterblast for all sorts of stuff. Of course, things like Josephus and Dindrain, particularly Josephus because it's a Liberator card, so you definitely want to play that. He can't get you counter charge and even a draw, but you need to Soul Blast 2 in order to get that full effect. This is already Soul Blasting, so you'll need to make sure you can manage your soul with things like Aglavale in order to keep it going. It's a very resource intensive play, but I think it's perfectly fine. So just adding that little spice of making this the auto multi-attack when it attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, right? I think that would be fine. Heck, if you wanted to add a little bit of limit break spice to it, right, you could also say, like, so make this Vanguard, like, grade 3 or greater thing. You did this to, like, give them the power, and I think that's perfectly fine. I could also see where if Vanguard grade 3 or greater you get 5,000 power, and then if you're at 4 or more damage, then it's like 10,000 power instead or whatever. So like it's really big power, but maybe that's actually too much because you are getting a lot of multis. So you know what? Never mind. Yeah. Honestly, the only suggestion I would make is like make this an auto when it attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard or something like that. Or heck, I guess no, just auto when it attacks a Vanguard because the grade 3 or greater should be down here because you still want to do something on your first turn. Yeah, I'd say that's about all I have to say. Yeah, probably about like an 8 or 8.5 out of 10. That card, he's pretty good. My boy Gancelot be shining though, bro. God, I hate that it's so blurry here because this is a really, really, really cool zero art. Like, I know people really like to smack. Why does it have a forest marker? Never mind. So back to gushing on the art, right? Zero did so much good art. I mean, just look at this Blaster Blade Liberator that we got coming up here in a second. Sheesh. Or bro, you like BDR better? Sheesh. Yeah, they were cooking with these arts. Anyway, back to Gancelot Zenith. So I noticed just from the overarching art set that we're not getting the regular Gancelot. It's just going to be Zenith, which I'm a little sad by, but I guess I can kind of understand. But I think you're missing out on an opportunity to do like some sort of like break ride kind of combo thing where like regular Gancelot has a skill when it rides over, and that would be cool because then you could do like this multi-chain riding scenario where you go like Holy Shine, Gancelot into Zenith and stuff like that, and then you can get the cross ride bonus as well. I think that would have been nice personally, but I don't blame you. You don't want to over bloat the Liberator support right away. So Liberator bonds Gancelot Zenith. This was also my favorite Gancelot, funnily enough. Auto on the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks, cost Counterblast 1 and choose one of your grade 2 or less rear guards and put on the bottom of your deck. So you cannot bot deck another Gancelot. This is actually kind of a funny skill for V golds in particular because a lot of gold decks do run a lot of grade 3s like Garmore and Moxlash and stuff like that to get a lot of like extra multi-attack chains going. So this is a relevant condition here. Look at cards from the top of your deck equal to the grade of your opponent's Vanguard +1. So in other words, you'll be able to peer into top 4 in most scenarios. Maybe 5 you're playing against a like Nouvelle Vogue or one of the Bermuda Great Force or something. Choose up to 1 unit card from among them, call it an open rear circle, and it gets 10,000 power to end of turn. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you call it up to 2 instead. This is a perfect skill. Absolutely 10 out of 10 skill. Phenomenal, right? It has everything here. Proper cost, proper condition. It's a multi-attack with 10,000 power, which is like up to snuff with V-Series. But you also scale based off of your opponent's Vanguard's grade for the search radius, which increased search radius is a very powerful thing for Gold Paladin, so I'm glad that you kept that in mind in the scale. And finally, it only multi-attacks harder and is technically a +1 for the counterblast if your opponent's at grade 3 or greater. Otherwise, you're counterblasting for a break-even multi, which is a fine trade-off. This is phenomenal. This is a fantastic skill. Absolutely no complaints here whatsoever. That's goated. Auto. When this unit is placed on rear from the deck. Ooh, we got a rear guard circle skill with Gancelot. Me likey, dude. That's so old school Liberators to have skills specifically when placed from the deck. If you have a Vanguard Liberator in its card name, put this unit to the top of your deck. Call a unit with Blaster Blade in its name from your deck or drop zone to an open rear circle and shuffle your deck. Wow, that. Woo! Woo! That is a really clever skill. That's so slick, bro. Like, so I know a lot of y'all are looking at this and saying, well, duh, bro, right? Like, you're doing this so you can buff up your Monarch Sanctuary Alfred some more and, you know, get the extra, like, 10k and critical, right? And, like, yes, it's doing that, which is already a really, really cool skill, because it's what I'm talking about before, where looping the Blaster Blades to keep making your Vanguard super threatening was a very legitimate part of Monarch Sanctuary Alfred's card design. This is also harking back to the original Gancelot's effect. The OG Gancelot, Solitary Knight Gancelot, his original skill let you put him from the hand to the deck to add a Blaster Blade from deck to hand. He put himself back to deck to tutor out the Blaster Blade manually. This is doing the same thing, but in the Gold Paladin fashion of when he's called from the deck, he can put himself back to call the Blaster Blade. So instead of hand to deck and then deck to hand, it's deck to field and then field to deck and then from deck to field again, right? Like, this is so Gancelot. Everything about this just screams original Gancelot and Gancelot Zenith, all tied into one perfect package, which also makes them the perfect, the optimal pairing with Monarch Sanctuary Alfred. Wow, I mean, I feel like I don't even want to just give this a 10 out of 10. Like, I feel like I want to give this like better. Like, this is one of the most beautiful singular card designs ever, right? Like, there is no balancing issues. There is no issues with its theming, nothing. The only issue about this card is that it has an epic force marker, which is such an oopsie. This is such an oopsie, right? It's supposed to be an Excel marker, and I bet like he oopsied by making this a 13k and it was supposed to be a 12k. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here, because otherwise, WTF, man, right? So yeah, aside from that one blight, that one singular stain on the record, right? This is one of the most goated, one of the most goated encounter looking. It is weird too, because he's having an encounter looking thing going on here, so that almost implies that it's D series, but wait, actually, they're Keter Sanctuary, so this is D series? Huh. But if this is D series, then, well, that complicates things, right? Because, okay, so he has some very weird icons going on then. Because D series shouldn't have markers. So why does he have marker icons, right? So I guess there's two ways to look at this then. So if this is in the D series lens, then this is definitely a lot weaker than it needs to be. But at the same time, I also can see why you don't make it a big multi-attack like that. But you're more limited in your circles, so I think it's more fine in D anyway, despite the fact that D is a higher power level. This is weird. I'm going to continue to look at them in the V series incarnation and just like take the whole Keter Sanctuary encounter border thing as like superfluous details. I'm going to look this in the B series context. In terms of D series, if you guys want that synopsis, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end there. Let's move on though. So I'll start with the man, the myth, the legend, Blaster Blade Liberator. Auto. When this unit is placed on van or rear, if you have a Vanguard Liberator in its card name, which can include itself, classic V-Series type skill, you discard a card, choose one of your opponent's front or rear cards, and retire it. Okay, so this is kind of a funny skill because it's a little bit weaker than what you would get from like Blaster Blade Seeker, where the Seeker one discarded to retire, but then also it gave a critical to your Seeker Vanguard if its grade was you know, like if it was equivalent, right? So this one is literally just the 1-for-1 exchange to get rid of a front row retire, and this really gives me the impression this is supposed to be a V-Series card, because if this was a ride line card, this would be a very weak ride line card. You would not want to run this in your ride line. Auto on the rear circle, when your other unit Liberator in its card type is placed on rear from your deck, this unit gets 5,000 power to end a turn. That's a fascinating skill, and I kind of like that because that means he's powering up alongside your Monarch Sanctuary Alfred, because if you're mass calling the Blaster Blade Liberators, then let's say you call 5 off top deck, right? And you hit a Blaster Blade Liberator off it as well, right? You'll be able to get an extra 20,000 power to Liberator on his own because of that. So he's a really big, beefy attacker that also benefits from the Monarch Sanctuary Alfred play. And that's good. You want to make the Monarch Sanctuary Alfred play feel really big and meaningful because you're investing your entire strategy around that very expensive skill. Continuous on the rear circle, if 5 or more units with Liberator in its card name were placed from rear from deck, I guess you would say like this turn, this unit gets 1 critical +1 until end of turn. Ooh. Wow, this is an interesting way to take Blaster Blade Liberator. Not gonna lie, like the removal is such a side piece here. He's just a really, really, really massive beater, right? A very dangerous card. A part of me wants to say that I don't kind of like that because he, that's what like the original was all about, right? Like the original just had kind of like that basic removal skill and then he went for it. But at the same time, I think that would just be me being a meanie weenie poo poo head, right? This is fine. This is a good idea, right? This is another one of those elements where V-Series taking liberties works to the advantage of the card design because it feels more thematically fulfilling to have Blaster Blade Liberator hit like a truck because he is kind of the avatar, right? Everything, including Monarch Sanctuary himself and Gancelot, are all about getting your Blaster Blade Liberators out there and benefiting from the presence of Liberator. So he is the true centerpiece of the deck. And so him being able to be that really reliable beater that you can end games with is super fulfilling. So you know what? I dig that. I also like that if you call multiple Liberators, you just get a lot of big attackers with crits and stuff. So this means that like this version of Liberators here they're not about like rampant multis or even rampant plussing. They do have that, right? Like especially if you made Monarch into an auto win attack skill, that you could have that going for you. It's more about like getting strength from the aid of their friends, and all of them are going to be really beefy monsters. So yeah, that's I like that. I think this is a cool interpretation that makes the Aichi Liberators, as we'll call them, right? It makes Aichi Liberators feel distinctive from the previous bulwark of Liberators that we've had from like the bluish flames and stuff like that. Okay, so let's move on to the very random BDR here. I don't know why BDR is here. He's not a Liberator, he's a Revenger. This guy should be with the Revenger stuff, but I guess he took a wrong turn and came up on the Liberator camp. So, grade 2, Blaster Dark Revenger, yeah, all the normal stuff. So, continues, this unit is also regarded as Blaster Dark. That's immediately pertinent because there is a F-ton of cards in the Shadow Paladin V-Series card pool that requires you to have Blaster Dark out there in the world, right? I mean, I don't even want to list all the things that require Blaster Dark because V-Series had an obsession with making Blaster Dark your centerpiece for Shadows. Like, early to mid Shadows had so much of it. Same thing with, funnily enough, the same thing was the case with Royal Paladins, where you had a lot of stuff like Tristan and Baron, the Alfreds, right? You know, all of them were really getting like down to the Blaster Blade calls, recalls, recursions, power-ups, the original Solitary Knights of Ganslot retrained for V-Series, right? That one gave it like drive checks and stuff. Like, they were all super concerned about it. So this one being able to be called Blaster Dark, whereas this one can't just be called Blaster Blade, is kind of weird champ to me. But I guess it kind of makes sense because this is a Gold Paladin anyway, so you can't run it, whereas here this is a Shadow Paladin, so you can run it in Shadow Paladin. So you know what, I think I take that back. I get why this one can be treated as Blaster Dark. It's because of how the clan distinctions work. Auto on the Vanguard rear, with this unit's placed, if you have a Vanguard Revenger in its card name, you discard a card, choose your opponent's front or rear guards to retire it. Okay, so see, this one this one's cool, right? I kind of like it, I kind of don't like it, because it's just the exact same thing as Blaster Blade Liberator, which you can process it as a good thing or a bad thing. On one hand, one side of the camp says that this is really cool because they're mirroring each other, so they feel like two sides of the same coin, which feels really lore relevant. But on the other camp, you could hear the argument that this means that they're less distinctive from each other, right? They feel less unique from each other, which is a little bit like sad, like sad face. But I mean, honestly, the originals also kind of had like very similar removal skills anyway, so I would say camp one kind of wins out here, and you know, it's cool that they maintain that parallel. Auto on the rear, when this unit is retired by the ability of your Vanguard Adventure in its card name, you counterblast one and soul blast one. This is really cool because you got a lot of retires, right? And it's cool to see Shadow Paladins actually benefit off retires, because usually retires is just a hard cost for you. Call this unit to rear circle. Your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards or retires it, and this unit gets 10,000 power until end of turn, and it's a hard once per turn. This is a brilliant skill. Ooh. Oh, wow, the combos you can do with this. This is an amazing skill, right? So, let's look at all the stuff that you can do with this, right? This card being retired by the ability of your Revenger means that you have two main Revengers in V-Series that can make use of a skill like this, right? And this isn't including whatever a potential RPBA could do. Your Revenger Raging Form Dragon, by having this card be able to return itself, this alleviates like some amount of need to hit your like your extra Revenger Raging Form Dragon stuff, right? So let me explain. With Revenger Raging Form Dragon, you need 5 cards on the field and then also another Revenger Raging Form in the hand, and then you'll be able to get a second Revenger, like any Revenger Grade 3. So you need 2 Revenger Grade 3s in the hand, one of them being Raging Form, and 5 Revengers on the field, and Limit Break. What you do is you retire 3, after you attack, re-ride the Limit Break, call something for the deck, you're back at 3, and then you'll be able to go again, retire. This alleviates this a bit because you can actually recall this as one of your rears. So even if you're not at Limit Break, you get the option to push for the 3 Vanguard attack turn, meaning that Revengers become a lot more aggressive. As long as you see a BDR, your Raging Form Dragon as a first turn ride is way more legitimate than it used to be, because until Limit Break, you had no way to get the triple swing. And so it just kind of felt bad, man, because let's bear in mind, you're doing some hard negging when you're doing a Raging Form Dragon turn. By superior riding, which it does get you a force marker, mind you, but it doesn't get you any pluses. Technically, riding is a -1. I say that sometimes. Riding is a -1, and retiring 3 is a -3. So you're minusing 4. You do get 2 twin drives, so overall it's a -2. That's a hefty -2 to get an extra multi attack, right? So this will help you pay the cost, and it gets you a strong 20k attacker that also retires one of the opponent's rears. So what's funny about this is kind of combines the effects of Raging Form and Renal, right? The CB is the Raging Form recall, and the Soul Blast is the Renal your opponent chooses a card to retire. So very pertinent there. Also, if you use this with a Drag Ruler Phantom by calling it in the back row, you can like recall. Of course, it's not quite as strong in the case of Drag Ruler Phantom because you're doing it to restand rears and give them powers, so you can't really get multi-attack off of this, but it is still a way to ping one of your opponent's units and also like technically combat a neg. But Drag Ruler also soul blasted and counter blasted to do that skill, so this is quite expensive. So yeah, honestly, this is mostly a Raging Form Dragon support card, and I couldn't be happier. Another thing that you can do is, let's say that you only had 2 Raging Form Dragons, right? You can still get the 7 attack turn on Limit Break, because despite this being a hard once per turn, what you do is if you're on Limit Break, you RFD, retire 3, ride RFD, counterblast with this Limit Break, get another one. You can actually call this guy from the deck with RFD, right? And then you swing with them, swing with RFD, and then, I don't know, ride into a Drag Ruler, Mordred Phantom, maybe a Raging Fall Dragon, something like that, right? You ride into that thing, but since you retired this, now you use this hard once per turn skill to recall and retire something, right? So that's still a 7 attack turn, even if you don't hit the 3rd RFD. Or if you do hit the 3rd RFD, and if you're a Mad Lad, and you've got the counterblast to do it, you can call something like another Nullity Revenger or another one of this guy or whatever, and you have an 8 attack turn. The versatility in how this guy can be an extender for you, while also maintaining like just extra retires, because when you place it again, you can keep discarding in order to retire your opponent's like front rows and stuff. This is a really devastating card. Like, holy crap, dude! I would run like so many Blaster Dark Revenger. Like, I think this right here would convince me to finally like take out Mordred package and not do the Mordred original Blaster Dark. Although then again, one could make the argument that this would fuel Mordred package, because him being Blaster Dark means that Mordred can get you an extra force marker when this guy is placed. So Mordred won't be able to benefit off the whole retire skill because V-Series Mordred doesn't retire, but you can get the force markers and multi-attack with it, which is really, really, really funny. And it has to be retired by the ability of your Vanguard specifically, so you can't like be cheeky and retire it with like a Nullity Revenger for a part of its like search effect, right? Because then you'd be able to call it back again, get another force marker off Mordred, and it'd be an even bigger attacker with a retire, right? So you can't do that, thank the Lord. Overall, yeah, it's a balanced, I'd say it's still a balanced card, but wow, it's on the edge of pushing Revengers like over. Like, the amount of synergy this thing has with RFDs particularly could push Revengers from being a rogue deck into like a tier 1.5 kind of deck, if you ask me. That's how strong this singular card is. And yes, you will be seeing this card because you have like really good searchability in the deck. So many cards in V-Series Revenger search. Anyway, I spent way too much time on BDR, despite the fact, it says BBR, Bluster Blade Revenger, despite the fact that he's not even a Liberator like these guys, but he had him in there, so I'm going to review him. Anyway, let's go on to, oh, there's another, Star Rain Trumpeter. This is the final grade 2 he got us. Liberator Star Rain Trumpeter. Auto, when this unit is placed on Beard Circle, choose a card with Blaster Blade in its name from your soul or drop zone to put on top of your deck. This is just like the original. Shuffle the deck, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 unit with Liberator in its card name and call it to an open rear circle. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Okay, so yeah, this is really powerful. So yeah, if you do get rid of your Blaster Blades, you are able to constantly like plus another Liberator, and it's really easy to plus a Liberator. Because it's a top 3, but you have to call specifically a Liberator. Wow. I almost feel like this one needs to have like a hard once per turn kind of skill, right? So you can't like keep funneling that out. But I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on it, but I just feel like the way that the originals work, where you had like less searchability, and also like Star Rain I think only peaked like the top card, stat of Star Rain was a lot more limited what you could do compared to this. So I think this is way more abusable. So I don't know, maybe like add a cost to it or something, or like just another condition, because it's a little bit too easy for it, just a tiny bit too easy. Act on the rear, cost, rest this unit. Choose 2 normal units with Liberator in his card name, put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. I'm going to guess that this skill is on the rear circle. It could be the drop, it could be the rear circle. I'm not sure where these units are, so it's hard to judge that. Soul Charge 1, and your Vanguard gets 5,000 power until end of turn. And this is a hard once per turn. Yeah, see, like, I feel like, yeah, you could hard once per turn this, and then this also. Like this is kind of interesting, because putting back 2 Liberators for the Soul Charge, this feels like this is probably a, is this drop, or is this, I guess it could still be the field, right? Because you could, what you could do is you could take 2 from the field, and then the assumption is that you use Monarch Sanctuary Alfred afterwards and just refill your field again anyway. I can't judge this skill. I think overall this one is going to be one of those few question mark out of 10 cards, because between how I don't know how to process this first skill, and I don't even know what the radius for the normal unit cost of this skill is, I don't know how to judge this card, so I'm just going to move on. Marin. Little Liberator Marin, classic. Continues on the rear. During your turn, if your rear guard was placed from deck this turn, this unit gets 5,000 power. Wow, this actually is kind of a generic beater. Like, this is potentially even easier to fulfill than Gorboduke. Auto on the rear. When its attack or the attack get boosted hits a Vanguard, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 unit with Liberator in its card name, put it in your hand, and put the remaining cards in the bottom of your deck in order. This is a... Ooh. Bro, he gave Liberator a Renal, dude, but it's a Renal that has more power, so it's better at achieving the Renal condition than Renal is. That's kind of, ooh, that's kind of dangerous, bro. Ooh, you know what? Hey, oh. How do I feel about that? You know what? Yeah, this is probably fine, right? But wow, this is a really, really strong card. Like, oh, but this is something Liberators could use, right? I mean, just imagine being a mini weenie and putting this behind a Fallon. The double on hit, right? And you actually manage to break through, and your opponent's not having a good time. They might be tempted just to scoop if they let that easy peasy lemon squeezy +2 like for no cost incur, right? Wow, dude. You know what? I think an even easier thing, this is like a Corvette, right? For Blue Wave, it's like a Corvette. I guess it's a better one because Corvette also had power. So yeah, like it is one of those things where there are other cards like it, so it's definitely not unfounded in terms of power level. This is definitely acceptable, but wow, in Liberator particularly, being able to add off top cards to the hand in Gold Paladin, that's impressive. That is something that you don't see very often in this clan. It has a hand building issue. So yeah, Marin's absolutely phenomenal. It kind of, this one, like this one is an effect that I think in a lot of decks would just be about the average, but for golds in particular, like Liberator golds, there's a lot to talk about with it. Physical Force Liberator Zoran. When this unit is rode upon, you may call this unit to an open rear circle. Perfectly serviceable skill. We see a lot of V-Series cards like that. Totally cool. Auto on the rear. At the end of this unit boosted, cost. Put this unit into your soul and choose a normal unit with Liberator in its name from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck. And it says a normal unit specifically, so I like that. You draw 1 card, then if you're not countercharged this turn, you may countercharge 1. Okay, so you're essentially breaking even and then also countercharging, while also bot decking another Liberator in order to keep your deck compression going. If you're not using Star Range Trumpeters, then this would be another way in order to get your Blaster Blade Liberators back into the deck. Overall, yeah, I think this is a really powerful card. Like, do I think it's busted? No, but I think it's also such a strong countercharger. The reason why I don't think it's busted is because this is where the V-Series implication comes into light, where you get stuff like this more free and easy in V-Series, right? Like, decks are less inhibited by that. So being able to use this Zoran and get a lot of counter charges, it's nice. I think what would have pushed us over the edge is if the counter charge wasn't a hard, like, once per turn counter charge thing where you can't counter charge again that turn, meaning that Josephus can't, you can't combo this with Josephus, right? You would have to do this, and then I guess what you can do is you use Zoran and then afterwards you use Josephus. So I guess you could get a lot of counter charges potentially, but then you you'll also have to do more soul building, which there is ways to build soul, I've noticed. Like Zoran is one of the ways to do it. So yeah, he's just a really strong resource card. Yeah, I think he's just one of those cards that you would definitely see being like a hyper impactful version. He might be a little bit like too easy, potentially. I don't know. But I'm going to go, like, I guess I could see where this dude would, this dude may not need the draw, but the draw is just there to help, like, make you more of a mid-range deck. Like, that's something I noticed about this Liberator package overall, is it's a little bit more reliable, right? You get like beefy numbers, you get your pluses, you can get some more card advantage going on. It's a very stable strategy compared to some more of the high octane versions of goals that we've come to like understand from V series, right? Yeah, this is a fine card. Yeah, overall, I'd say I'd probably get these guys about like a 9 out of 10. I love a lot of these effects here. There are a couple points where I'm a little bit iffy on. Like, I think Monarch Sanctuary Alfred's a little bit boring. Like, you could have done a little bit more with him to break the mold. The Zenith is the shiznit, the absolute shiznit. I was a little bit conflicted on BBL, but I think this is one of the better interpretations I've seen of BBL, because you took it beyond the norm and said, look, let's just make him the big kahuna like he was always presented to be. Marin was dicey, but I think Marin fits just fine. This card I have like a really question mark on, and this is one of the things that's hurting your score. Like, yeah, and I mean, BBR, I do like BBR a lot, but of course I think this might be a little bit overtuned given how much you could do RFD abuse, but you are counterblasting and soul blasting, so you're devoting a lot of your resources to that play in particular. So I guess it's fine, but man, this is one heck of an upgrade, right? Like, what an impressive card here. So yeah, I would say this is about a 9 out of 10. Pretty good stuff overall. What do we got going on for time-wise? Ooh, we just hit the 1 hour mark. Okay. Does that mean I won't be able to get to Mr. Kagro today? Oh, wow. Yeah, and I forgot this guy has like a lot of cards that he's trying to do anyway, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm actually going to end it here for now. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, but I think it might be better just to space this out, especially because scrolling past this guy, there's not a lot of stuff here left, dude. Like, there's a few, but that's about it. So I don't know, man. It's starting to feel like we're kind of ending up to the end game here. So let me go ahead and chill out on that, end it a little bit early so that we can freshen up and brace ourselves for potentially the final episode next time around. I know that's really wild to say, but that actually does feel like it's going to be the case. I don't even know. I guess I'm kind of sad about that, but at the same time, like, we had so much good stuff here that it was quite the fulfilling season so far. But let me not talk like it's over yet. For all I know, I could get like blasted with a few more like later on, right? And then it'll completely change the script, right? So I mean, heck, this entire episode was a lesson in expect the unexpected, because I said we were gonna get to this guy next, and we spent an entire episode not getting to this guy next. So let's hush up on that. Anyway, if you guys did like this episode, then go ahead and check out the other custom card reviews of this season. As I said before, we're heading near the end zone here, so only a little bit more time to get in on this or watch along. That's about that. If you want to include, you could try to get in. I'm not sure if you'll be able to get it in time. I think we're past the point of no return. But even as just a viewer, I'd be happy if you went and like watch the playlist, or heck, even some of the older custom card reviews that we got prior. If you're really like binging the series, these are some really fun cards to read, and I hope you guys are having as much fun watching these videos as I am actually doing these videos. But if you are like, if you've had your full of this, then go ahead and check out my other Vanguard content. We're talking about tier lists, fight nights, anime reactions, discussions, the whole shebang. So check those out. And if you like what you see, then consider leaving a subscribe and turn on the notification bell for next time I upload a video. And with that said, take care. God bless.